Hello, 49er faithful. This is Jack Hammer of the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, along with my Tuesday co-host, So Real Sunil. This is eventually going to be the 49er throwback show. We're working on getting that together for you. But today, free agency's hot and heavy. 49ers have made a couple of moves. They've lost some players. Jimmy Garoppolo still hanging around the 49ers facility. Well, he's not in the 49ers facility, but he's still a member of the 49ers at this point. So we're going to get into all that for you over the next 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long it takes for us to get through all these topics. How you doing, Sunil?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that throwback show, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to it till maybe after the draft. Maybe that's going to be when we have some time to actually talk about previous 49ers teams, because there's just so much going on with this team right now with all the rumors that are circulating.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's definitely a lot going on with the 49ers, and it all, right now it's interesting because it really starts off the conversation around the 49ers for the most part starts and stops at the quarterback position. And so the first question I have for you is will Jimmy Garoppolo ever leave, or is he just going to always be a 49er?
Will we ever know who the starting quarterback of the 49er is in an offseason, right? Like, we never know. Every single year there's some more rumors about guys that they'll be flirting with and stuff like that. But as far as specifically with Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously the fact that it's dragging doesn't bode well for that. It kind of makes it seem like the 49ers still might be flirting with bringing Jimmy back. But I got to believe, just with the fact that they just gave, Ward the type of deal that they gave, there's still a lot of holes that they need to plug in on this team. And, you can only restructure so many contracts to be able to get underneath the cap and have the type of flexibility to really be a player in free agency for the type of players I'm sure they want to go out there and sign. So I got to believe that Jimmy Garoppolo's days with the 49ers are numbered. Whether that is a trade or he just gets flat out cut, that is a different, I guess, scenario for me, or a different take I may have, or a debate for another day. But I can't see Jimmy Garoppolo coming back when the 49ers really need that $25 million off the cap so that they could, play a little bit more in free agency.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the 49ers need to move on from him. I'm not in the ready to cut him today, like you've been hearing about for the last couple of days from the 49er faithful. I don't agree with that. I think, you have until 1:00 tomorrow. So we're a little under 24 hours now before they need to be under the salary cap. Right now, as it stands right now, we don't know what the contract deal specifics are on the Charvarius Ward deal or the signing of Oren Burks. Those numbers haven't been disclosed yet. So it's kind of hard for us to know what those cap hits are going to look like. But without those two on the roster, the 49ers are currently $9.5 million over the cap. There's a lot of ways that they can get under that number by 1:00 tomorrow.
But they still have more people to sign.
Yeah, and you're not letting me finish.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm kidding. No, but and they do. If they're going to be players in free agency, or even just bring back their own, because even their own guys, they still have a number to bring back, right? They don't have Juwan Jennings under contract yet, even though it shows up on over the cap. I haven't heard anything or seen anything that says that that's actually a done deal. The 49ers haven't put that out. That's for sure. And then they also have the restricted free agents that they haven't tendered contracts to as well. So there's some of their own that they need to bring back. And, so you're looking at it, they've got $9.5 million over the cap right now. Their draft capital that they have is going to take up about another $7 to $8 million. That puts them at 18. That's down the road a little ways, but the 49ers can get under the cap, kind of start to play around in free agency without it by doing some extensions. But I'm with you. I think this Jimmy thing needs to probably come to a head either by 1:00 tomorrow or shortly thereafter, at least by the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think they're just really weighing their options with what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. I think whomever misses out, there's obviously, I think the three major teams that are, I know that's a topic that we're talking about, but, the three major teams that are in play for them are the Panthers, the Saints, and then the Falcons just jumped into that, it looks like. So of those three teams, let's say Atlanta ends up getting him. Well, New Orleans and Carolina are still going to need a quarterback, right? So that all of a sudden Jimmy Garoppolo looks more intriguing to them when they're already in the mode to give up assets for a quarterback. I'm sure they're just waiting till the last minute before they like have to cut him if they need to, or, you know, a deal comes to fruition that's a little bit better than what they're seeing on the board right now.
Yeah, I think that the issue for the 49ers right now is you do have Deshaun Watson out there, and he's kind of depressing the market a little bit because, you know, if Indianapolis has decided they're going to move on, you still have New Orleans and Carolina, who I think are quarterback needy teams, and in the position where they want to get a quarterback that can play for them now instead of getting a rookie and waiting. So his decision there, I think, impacts a little bit of with Garoppolo as well. So it'll be something to keep an eye on over the next 24 hours, less than 24 hours now, to find out where Garoppolo goes. But I do believe he's going to be gone here shortly. But I will say that, you know, let's bring up that question right here, because we've been hearing a lot of rumors today, right, around Deshaun Watson and the 49ers. And
Jack, are you about to break news? Did you just get a call from somebody?
We've heard a lot of discussions with this Deshaun Watson thing, right? It came out this morning from one source, and then it got shut down really quick from a number of folks. And even though it got shot down by really a lot of the same folks who kept telling us all off season that Mac Jones was going to be the 49ers starting quarterback, or the quarterback the 49ers were going to draft. Mm-hmm. It came back out again not long after, earlier this afternoon, from Jason Dumas, who from Cron TV here in San Francisco, who I know is a pretty good guy. I've sat next to him in the press box a couple of times this last year. I don't think he's going to throw that out there just to try to get clicks. So there might be some links to this Deshaun Watson thing, and the 49ers are doing what they have to do by pushing it down.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's no secret that whatever they probably gave up to get Trey Lance was earmarked to get Deshaun Watson, till Deshaun Watson's, you know, off the field issues came to be a bigger story, right? So I think the 49ers have always had a lot of interest in Deshaun Watson. You know, Kyle Shanahan's ideal quarterback, somebody who could run like Lamar, throw like, you know, Drew Brees, like you mentioned, you know, last offseason. Deshaun Watson is, you know, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks that are out there. And, you know, even the 49ers, when they were number 3 draft pick, they were going to get the quarterback that they were eyeing this offseason in Trey Lance. They still made a call to see if Aaron Rodgers was available when all that news came on. So the 49ers are into doing due diligence, and they're going to make a call and see, hey, what is there even a shot for us? And I think that might be what was being, I guess, talked about or reported. But is there any fact, like, there's no way the 49ers have enough assets to pull Deshaun Watson. A lot of people think that Trey Lance is just going to be able to be traded. It's not that. 49ers don't have enough draft picks, first round draft picks, and they're just not going to be able to put together a package that is going to beat what Carolina, New Orleans, or Atlanta is willing to give up. So I think, do they do their due diligence? I could believe that for sure, because we know the 49ers are going to call about every single quarterback every offseason. But are they really going to, you know, make an offer? I doubt it.
Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to the Houston Texans, have they stated specifically that they're looking for just draft picks, though?
I don't know. We really don't know, because I feel like it's a story of multiple regimes, right? I think what was spoken about last year, before, you know, Deshaun Watson was cleared, it did seem like quite a hefty bit of first round draft picks plus players. Now they have like a new coaching staff there. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is cleared of any criminal wrongdoing. So now that he can actually play, or it looks like he's going to be able to play, who knows what they're looking for? I don't think there's any real reports. If I'm Houston, I'm letting these guys fight it out and see whatever the biggest deal is. I'm not even putting a cap on what we could get, because the teams that are interested are all in the same division. So it's about, like, if whomever gets him, those other 2 teams not only missed out on that quarterback, now they have to play against that quarterback. So I'm assuming they're going to get a pretty good package for Deshaun.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say on here is that, you know, the 49ers were interested in Deshaun Watson, like I think you mentioned earlier, you know, before the legal stuff came down. And I think that's when we saw them pivot to to going into the draft, because right around that's about that same time period. So I can see a situation where maybe the 49ers go to Houston, a team that really is a quarterback away from being a contender. I mean, they had a pretty good defense last year. They just didn't have offense, and maybe you go to maybe you're John Lynch and you go to Houston and you say, hey, how about we give you Jimmy Garoppolo, and we're going to throw in Brandon Ayuk, because we're not going to be able to afford Ayuk down the road. We're already talking to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, so why do I need to have 3 wide receivers of that caliber on here? Maybe they do that kind of route, and then they say, okay, we're going to use those guys, and then we're going to fill in with some other picks around, because we have a pretty good group of picks, starting with the first rounder in 2024. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ways that I think the 49ers could make an enticing offer to the Houston Texans. Would be a quarterback, maybe even if you're going to go to Deshaun Watson, maybe it's not even Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe it's the younger quarterback. I don't know. I just don't. I have a hard time for seeing the Texans wanting to have Davis Mills be the guy that they're going to run it back with here in 2022. I didn't see enough of him to think that he's going to be a guy that's going to eventually take him to the promised land.
Yeah, but I also don't think that Jimmy Garoppolo is as enticing to Houston as a lot of people may think. Like, look, if they're talking to Atlanta, I would take Matt Ryan over Jimmy Garoppolo as far as a bridge quarterback to learn under or for Davis Mills to learn, because like we talked about, I think it's being more and more forgot, but Jimmy Garoppolo, nobody knows what he's going to look like after the surgery. We assume that he's going to be just as good or maybe even stronger because that's fixed, but who knows, right? Surgery is surgery. How someone recovers is different each time. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is already somebody who is pretty injury prone, you would say. He's had multiple season-ending injuries, so I don't know if these teams are really banking on Jimmy Garoppolo, and we're seeing that as far as how long it's taking to trade him. That maybe people are worried about that contract plus the injury history, and that's why we're not getting the type of deals that the 49ers are looking for.
Yeah, those are 2 really good reasons as well. He's only made it through. He's only played a full 16 games at one time. This year he played 15. And so when he's played, he's shown himself to be a little bit injury prone. That's for darn sure. He has a big salary number. So those are all problems when it moves forward, and with moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. And are these rumors for Deshaun Watson accurate? I think there is some interest. The 49ers can't not deny this, right? They can't not deny it, because if they do want to make a trade for Deshaun Watson, they can't, at this point, they can't be, let's say they want to make this trade for Deshaun Watson, but they're trying to figure out what it's going to take, or if they have the chips to do it with some players to fill in for the lack of some of their draft picks. They can't let that really leak out that they're doing that, because that really will hurt them in the long run in terms of whichever quarterback they're sticking with here, and moving on, and what veterans they'd want to move as part of this deal. So I don't think Watson's going to happen for the 49ers, but it's a lot of fun to kind of think about, because you can really start to throw some interesting trades together. Come on, Sunil, put your tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, I think
throw me one.
I think I love Brandon Ayuk, but I would assume you get Brandon Ayuk, Drake Greenlaw, maybe some future first rounders, some third rounders, and the second rounder, and who knows? Obviously maybe Trey needs to be involved in that as well. So Trey, Greenlaw, Ayuk, our second this year, a couple of the thirds, and maybe a future first, two future firsts. I don't know if that does it, but that's something that at least Houston will have some players for right now that'll immediately make an impact on their team, plus have stockpile of draft picks in the future that are going to help them out, build the team through. But Deshaun Watson on the 49ers, you got to expect all those draft picks are going to be really low draft picks.
And then real quick here, Andrew throws out, he says, Watson, the 49ers equals 6 starts by Sudfeld. I think he's saying that because he's expecting
a suspension.
Suspension of 6 games. And that's fine. I don't think it's going to be 6 starts by Nate Sudfeld. I think that's 6 starts by either Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo until they get Deshaun Watson back and they run it through the rest of the season, the next 11 games. I think that would be their thought process. I don't think you're going to see the 49ers trade both of those quarterbacks away. So you'd have one of those two as your backup, and it's probably not going to be Jimmy Garoppolo because he's too expensive.
Right.
So, again, you're going to get to see some Trey Lance, but he just wouldn't see him for the whole season. You get 6 games of him, though. You're not buying it. Come on now.
I really think, I think that, I could see them making the call just because they do their due diligence, but I don't think there's any smoke to this at all.
I think there's some smoke, but they do their due diligence on everybody. That's one of the things. It's like a boilerplate kind of thing for the 49ers when it comes to anytime there's a free agent in the market. They're doing their due diligence on everybody. They're in on every person. That's why their name pops up with every report that's out there. So
I'm sure they made the call, but just like Green Bay did, I'm sure they got hung up on really quickly because I know Houston doesn't think the 49ers have anything for them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump over to a little bit of free agency. Yesterday morning, things got off to a rocky start for the 49ers. I don't think we were surprised by either of the two moves, but the first one that came down was Laken Tomlinson heading off to the New York Jets on a 4-year deal that averages about $13.7 million a year. What do you think about this move?
Yeah, this one was, whenever people thought, we're asking before free agency started as far as who was the must sign that the 49ers needed to re-sign, my money was on Laken Tomlinson. And the reason for that is I just don't have much faith that the 49ers are able to really draft and develop this position very well. Their top linemen have all been people that they've traded for. Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Alex Mack, to name a few last year. The only full-time starter last year that was actually drafted and developed by the team was McGlinchey. And then when he got hurt, Tom Compton. Even Brunskill was somebody who was somebody that they got through a trade. So now with Laken gone, I don't know if they're going to be players in free agency to bring somebody else in or trade for somebody. But if it's looking like guys that they've actually drafted, like Aaron Banks and, more, these guys are going to have to now step in. I'm just not very confident that the 49ers are able to draft and develop this position. So it is something that gives me a little bit hesitation, but it is looking like they're going with, these younger guys that they drafted, and they have to. You gave up assets, especially with Aaron Banks, a 2nd-round pick. You traded up to get him. You have to see what he could do, and hopefully him moving into his more natural position on the left side next to a guy like Trent Williams, and hopefully Alex Mack comes back. You're in between two Pro Bowl caliber players. Hopefully that helps him really take his game to the next level.
Yeah, I think that you're right on that. I think that this move or losing Laken Tomlinson, I don't think this is one that anybody really was surprised about. I think when you look at this move and then the next one we're going to talk about, it was all there were numbers that were associated with it that led you to believe that they weren't going to be back long before. I mean, I think you and I even had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, the last time we were together. Laken Tomlinson, what was it going to take to keep him? And I think we both said if it gets over 10 million, then you're just kind of waving to him and saying, thank you for your time here and good luck. And so it's a tough loss, mainly because the guy was an Iron Man, played all the time. He barely was off the field. That being said, he did have some struggles in the pass protection side of it. And it's Aaron Banks' time, and is Aaron Banks going to be the guy to step in and hold on the fort? I think that's what the Flyers are expecting. And it'll be, is he going to be able to do it? That's to be seen. He struggled in pass protection last year as well during training camp, and I could see that happening this season. But I would like to believe, the positive side of me would like to believe that Aaron Banks can step in and fill this role.
I mean, you got to see him in practice, I think, when you were in training camp and whatnot. I think one of the biggest things, and I think we discussed this last off season, you were saying that he really did struggle going to the right side from, naturally being a left guard. So hopefully moving back, like we talked about, helps. But, you're replacing, even, best case scenario, he does play well at left guard. You're replacing somebody who rarely got injured to somebody who has, at least in his initial NFL career, rarely been able to stay healthy. So that's already something that doesn't bode well, especially on an offensive line where injuries ravaged it last season as well. So it's just a little bit scary, to say the least, Jack.
He made it through like a series and a half of his first preseason game before he got it. I mean, come on now. No, but
When you can't even talk about quarters, we couldn't talk about a full quarter. You talked about a series.
so that was one of the reasons I think that he got, that pushed him back as well. So I don't know. It'll be, I don't know if they have enough money to sign a couple of guards here. We'll see how it plays out. But the Tomlinson one, I don't think was a surprise to anybody if you've been watching and really paying attention to what's been going on with the 49ers and where they were salary-wise. And the same thing here with DJ Jones. I think DJ Jones, the 49ers lost him. I'm going to take this one first. And I think, I really liked DJ Jones. I felt like he was a really good player. To give $10 million per year, 3 years, $30 million to DJ Jones, that's outrageous money for a guy who has never played, has only played a full season one time in 4 seasons. He's, last season he only played 51% of the snaps, so he's only on the field half the time. And you're going to give that guy 30 million over 3 years. That's good for him. Congratulations to DJ Jones on getting that number. That's crazy money for the 49ers, and I think they were smart to walk away.
Look, Chris Kosterick is every D lineman's best agent, right? Every D lineman needs to understand, if you don't think you're going to get a big contract, sign a 1-year deal at the vet minimum with the 49ers, go into Chris Kosterick in this defensive lineman rotation, and go out and get paid the next year. It's happened so many times, right? So I think that the 49ers obviously know they have a gem with this coach, and the defensive line has been able to play very, very well, regardless of, the talent that they bring in, just because they know the type of player that Kosterick can develop. And, as long as Bosa's there, Armstead's there, I really hope they bring in, I'm hoping they bring in a guy like Chandler Jones, whoever they play in that 4th spot. If they do get, a top tier defensive edge to match up with Bosa, whoever they put in at that 4th spot is going to be fine. Right. So I think they just know that this is a position of value for them where they don't need to spend too much money, because they could develop somebody to get at or near the same production without having to break the bank for.
Yeah, and this is, here's where it's a tough loss, where you miss out on DJ Jones, and why you want to keep him is he's a good run defender. You look at his run defense and what he did last year, he's really good against the run. He's a good run stuffing defensive tackle. They're going to try to replace him, I believe, with Javon Kinlaw and Kevin Givens, Maurice Hurst, that type of rotational group. The problem for the 49ers is none of those guys fits the run scheme as well as what DJ Jones gave them. At the same time,
maybe Kinlaw.
His numbers from his rookie season don't show it.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting when you look at the two is that Kinlaw has received a lot of grief for his lack of pass rush productivity over the first year and a half that he was playing, his first year, his rookie season and so on. But he's actually, according to Pro Football Reference, if you look at what Javon Kinlaw did in 2020 and what DJ Jones did last season from a pass rushing perspective, because both of these guys played about the same number of snaps in those 2 years, about 550 snaps for each of them. Javon Kinlaw had better pass rush productivity numbers than DJ Jones based off of knockdowns, hurries, and those kind of things, according to what Pro Football Reference puts out. So, I think the 49ers are losing a little bit in the run defense, and I think they're picking up a little bit here in the pass rushing area with this move.
Yeah, and I expect them definitely to use some of those draft picks, of the many draft picks that they have, to bring in some new defensive line, young guys that they could develop. So I'm not too worried about the defensive line side of things, because I know that they could find replacements, and it's a destination for defensive ends, right? And defensive linemen. They know that if they go to the 49ers, that's going to help them with their next contract, or even if they just want to play for a great defensive line group. Offensive line, on the other hand, with Lake and Thompson, I actually believe that's more of a hit, because it's not the same type of rapport or the same type of like excellence on the offensive line side as it is on the defensive line side.
Yeah, I agree. They haven't shown that ability to develop to that same level, or that's for sure. Although they've been able to win games they've been able to win games and sustain themselves when they've had big losses, right? I mean, this year they did it with the injury to Mike McGlinchey. They did it in 2019 when they lost Joe Staley for some time. I think at one point they lost both their tackles. And really what that all points back to when it comes to the 49ers offensive side and the pass rush, the pass protection is if you have a good quarterback, it doesn't matter. If you have a really good quarterback and you protect just enough, they're going to get it done. Whether that's Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, or Deshaun Watson.
Or let's just throw Tom Brady in there as well. Like, who cares if we're just going to name names?
Well, Tom Brady. I mean, think about it. Tom Brady spent 2 months at home, 40 days at home, and I think he was ran out of projects, or maybe he was just I think he got kicked out of the house is what happened.
Yeah, I mean, he just got bored. Clearly,
either that or she got bored of him. One of the two.
Right, one of the two.
Moving on, and so it was funny because all day long yesterday you had Blake and Tomlinson leave, you had DJ Jones leave. The Mariners aren't doing anything; they're just kind of sitting around, and you have 49er fans getting angry, blaming Jimmy Garoppolo for the fact that the 49ers haven't made any moves. The fact that Garoppolo's on the roster, that means that they can't make moves, they can't sign anybody, and then what do you know? They go out and they make a deal. They strike a deal with Charvarius Ward, cornerback from Kansas City. What are your thoughts on Ward?
I really like this signing, actually, Jack. I think he does a lot of great things for the 49ers. The first thing off the bat is his age. The 49ers usually don't sign free agents in the cornerback position that are young. We talk about Richard Sherman, tail end of his career. Josh Norman, tail end of his career. All of the guys that they've brought in are guys that are older, 30s, past their 30s. So for them to get a guy in Ward who's 25, will be 26 in the regular season, for me, that already was like eye-opening because that's not typically what the 49ers do. The second thing is he fits the mold of what 49er corners need to do, and that's be staunch tacklers. According to PFF, he only missed like 5% of his tackles last season, and that was rated number one, I think, out of all corners. If maybe that I might not be getting that stat right. Maybe it's just of the free agent corners. I'm not sure, but it's like they rated like 70 plus corners. So I was assuming that was just all corners that were actually playing. So knowing that, the 49er corners need to be great tacklers because their defensive line forces the quarterback to throw the ball quick. I think that's great to find somebody who great tackler. And then the third thing is I think it gives a lot of flexibility to the 49ers cornerback room now that they have three guys that can all play on the outside that are all under the age of 26. I think that gives them an opportunity to maybe take a flyer on a guy like Jason Verrett, maybe take a flyer on, somebody else that could come in and play that slot corner, that nickel corner. And I think, it also gives them the opportunity in the draft where now they don't have to press for a corner with that second round pick. They could truly go best player available and really stack their team with great talent because they have a young guy that's going to be there for the next 3 years.
Yeah, I like Ward. I think I like a lot of the reasons you mentioned. He's a young guy. His ability to play tight end man coverage is a big plus for this team. I think as the season wore on last year, Avery Thomas did pretty well, but he wasn't very good in man coverage. And so we saw the 49ers having to play pretty soft and really sit in zones and things like that. And we saw the teams with good quarterbacks chew that up. And so I think when you're looking at this, that's part of where this is going is you're probably going to see the 49ers run some man coverage a little bit more often than they have. It's something that we thought they were going to do going into 2022, right? That they were going to be more of a man team to begin with, in part because they've done such a good job of it in 2020. So I like the Ward signing. We'll see what the numbers show. We haven't even seen the numbers yet. We know there's a couple different preliminary reports on what they're going to look like, but nothing's been officially sent out. There's a few folks on Twitter that if you follow,
do a really good job of breaking down the contracts, and neither one of them have shown the numbers yet for Ward. So I'm not sure if those numbers are even out there yet to really be broken down. But
Right.
just off of
I
what
mean,
we've seen of Ward, so here's the one thing with Charvarius Ward, though, you have to be worried about. This is the guy that if Jimmy Garoppolo makes an accurate throw, is beat for the touchdown in the Super Bowl.
that's cool. I mean, every corner gets beat at one point or another, and it was obviously we think Kyle Shanahan with his schemes and stuff like that are going to confuse corners and safety. That's what he does. That's what he's great at. Now Charvarius Ward doesn't have to play against a Kyle Shanahan schemed up offense, right? Because he's on the team. He's gonna just have to play against it in practice. Another thing I really like about Ward. Low penalties, man. Only 2 pass interferences the whole season. Yes. So, we're looking at what the 49ers need out of their corner. The corners are always going to be the least invested group because they're going to go defensive line first. And then, the safeties and linebackers are going to be where most of their assets and most of their money is going to go towards. So we need corners that could just hold down the fort and not be a liability. I think this upgrades in many categories and fits exactly what the 49ers need out of their quarterback room.
Yeah, and I like him. I think it's going to be fun. I just kind of thrown it out there because I just had to see if I could I just had to see if I could get something out of you because,
I love it, dude. I love what the 49ers have done so far.
You're playing it pretty straightforward. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo almost beat him. Jimmy Garoppolo and slow old Emmanuel Sanders, they almost beat him for a deep touchdown in the Super Bowl.
What's the adage about almost only counts in horseshoes and something else?
Yeah. No, I know, and it's funny too because it's funny. I saw somebody had posted a video earlier today on a receiver from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it was Chark, CJ. I'm not sure what his first name is, but Chark's DJ Chark, and they were talking about and the first clip on the highlight reel is Ward getting beat deep by Chark against Jacksonville. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, whenever it happened, but that was the first thing that was on there. I put it out, and the first response I get is, "Every cornerback gets beat." Well, yeah, I know. It just happened to be the first thing on it, so it caught my attention.
Right.
So we'll see how it works out. But I am very positive on the signing. I think it's good for the 49ers and what they need to address. Step 1 is done there. Step 2 came earlier today when the 49ers added linebacker Oren Burks. I think this is an interesting one. Comes from the Packers. What are your thoughts on this? And then I'll give mine.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my first thought is who? Because I haven't heard too much about him, but I think this actually is a solid pickup by the 49ers again. Oren Burks was somebody who was drafted in the same draft class as Fred Warner. 18 picks after Fred Warner's, right? So we're talking about a 3rd-round talent. This guy, just like Fred Warner, played safety before he was moved to linebacker. Just like Fred Warner is somebody who is an amazing athlete. I think he runs like right under a 4.6 40 for a linebacker that's flying. And on the type of contract, it looks like 2 years, $5 million, $2.5 million. I think this kind of shows what the 49ers tips their hand on what they're going to do with the rest of the linebacking core. It looks like maybe this means that Dre Greenlaw is probably up for a trade so that they could save that $2.5 million on the cap for him. And then maybe they re-sign Azeez. And, I think once again, this is playing into the 49ers' strength. They know that if they get a player with certain attributes, their ability to develop certain positions is just at a different level. And their ability to develop linebackers is pretty elite. We see that with what they've done with Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Azeez Al-Shaair. So you bring in another guy with the same type of, physical attributes as a guy like Fred Warner, with a lot of the same capabilities as far as what his track record is. I don't think he's going to turn into Fred Warner, but if you're looking at a guy that's athletic, has coverage skills, is a guy that was picked in the 3rd round. So, obviously not just a throwaway player. Put him with D'Amico Ryans and the rest of this staff that develops these linebackers. I think this could turn into a steal for the 49ers down the line.
Yeah, Burks is a guy who, for me, he's primarily, I think they're looking at him maybe a little bit more in the Mark Nazacha type of role. A guy that's going to be a core special teamer, and that's his primary role. who may be able to fit in a little bit here on base downs, because that's what Nazacha was as well, right? Nazacha, when they brought him in originally, they had him at one point starting, I think it was the beginning of 2019 even. I think at one point he was the starter at strong on the strong side before they moved him around. So, Burks is a guy, he started a couple of games last year. He's only started 7 times in his career in 4 seasons. He had 3 starts last year because the starters ahead of him were injured. He plays okay. It's a good signing. It's not a big, expensive deal, but it's a depth piece that the 49ers need. And more than anything, the 49ers special teams has been bad. Let's just be honest. They have not been good over the last 3 years. And so they need to make some additions. So bring in Burks to kind of help try to adjust that. He had a really good season last year in terms of special teams tackles. And if you can bring that maybe a little bit a spark there, that's a positive for the 49ers entire team.
And if you could get anything out of him as a linebacker as well,
yes,
even more, right? Especially for the price tag that you got him for. So it's all positive, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think you look at that, it puts him in the Azeez Al-Shaair role, stratosphere in terms of what his compensation is, because they've already brought back Flanagan Fowles, and Azeez Al-Shaair is going to be probably right around that same number as well. So it's kind of interesting to see what they've done there. Before we move on,
do you agree that this is probably a sign that Dre Greenlaw might be traded, or the 49ers might have a plan to get him off the books?
Yeah, I can see that being a situation where you move on from Dre Greenlaw and decide to stick with Flanagan Fowles and Azeez Al-Shaair and so on. Especially because of the cost that would be associated with him. I don't think he's getting close to the end of his contract too as well. So I think it's
I think this is last year.
Yeah, so I think it could be a little bit of a preemptive strike for the 49ers there. Andrew going with the international trade of Jimmy Garoppolo. He says Watson to Atlanta, Matt Ryan to Cleveland, Baker Mayfield to Carolina or New Orleans, Winston to Carolina or New Orleans, and then Jimmy, you're out of here. We're shipping you to Saskatchewan.
Is that the same as the Seahawks now? Because that team crumbled quick. Let's just put it out there.
Well, we'll see. I mean, they do have Drew Lock up in the Pacific Northwest. We'll see how it works out. I mean, if he goes to Saskatchewan, it'll be Jimmy, and he's going to be a Rough Rider. I mentioned that, a Rough Rider, Jimmy Garoppolo, a Rough Rider.
I can see it. I can see him with the DMX chain and everything too. RIP to the legend, but one of those Rough Riders chains and stuff like that. I can see Jimmy Bling.
Yeah, Jimmy Bling after he takes shots at Levi Stadium with his thing the other day and so on and so forth. Real quick, Steve Supremo asked, "What's up? Any word on Kinlaw?" Well, the word on Kinlaw is that he's doing a good job in recovery. The 49ers feel really good about that, and they feel like he's working out with. We know that he's working out with the same trainers that worked with Nick Bosa last year to get him back from his knee injury that he sustained. So they're pretty positive on where things are with Javon Kinlaw at this point.
I think that he looks a lot slimmer from the video that I saw of him. It looks like he's a little more leaned out.
Okay. Yeah, they're gonna need for him to be a run stopper. So I don't know if I want to see him really get leaned out. I think I want him to keep eating squirrels and getting big. They're gonna need that. Let's move on. Let's stay with the defensive line, though, since that last question was on the defensive line. The 49ers came out today. The news broke this morning. The 49ers have restructured D Ford. Basically, they were able to reduce his cap hit from by $4.96 million, I believe it was, while adding some void years at the end. What are your thoughts on this restructuring of D Ford?
Yeah, I'm actually going to throw this one to you, Jack, because when it comes to these type of moves that are strictly cap moves, not really about a player playing or anything like that, it kind of confuses me a little bit, to be honest. So I'll throw this to you. I know this is strictly to save money. I don't know what the long-term ramifications and things like that, because I was at work to really do research on this. But tell me a little bit about what you think about this deal and how it bodes for the 49ers.
Yeah, sure. No, the deal here with D Ford is that they did that restructure, I believe, even last year, and so they were really kind of stuck with them. The only way they were going to get any savings for D Ford is if they released them with a post June 1 designation,
Hmm.
and even if they did that, it was only going to save them $2.4 million against the cap this year, and they wouldn't be able to take advantage of that savings until June 1st. On top of that, they would have dead cap hits for the next few years of like 4.25 million, I believe it was, for like a 3-year period. Uh, Maybe only two. It was going to be around $10 or $11 million of dead cap that they were going to eat by releasing a post June 1. So what they did was they did a restructuring, which gets them a savings of like I said, 4.96, I believe the number was, and in doing so, they also they turned the next 3 years, 2023, 24, 25, into void years. So really what they did was they paid about $2.5 million in dead cap for down the road that they'll have to eat. It's pretty minimal, I think, when you consider the escalation of the salary caps. When you look at, they're going to have some dead cap down the road, but your salary cap's going to go up. So the percentage of it in 2023 and 24 and 25 that it's going to eat up is going to be smaller than what it would have been if you had waited around and not done anything. So I saw some people not, questioning this move. For me, it was a no-brainer. It's a smart way. Ford was a guy who I think a lot of folks felt was going to get restructured in some way, somehow. Anyway, for me, it was a smart decision.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's just kicking the can and you're talking about 2.5 million for the next 3 years, especially because we do expect the TV deal to really make the salary cap rise quite a bit. 2.5 million, even though it would be life-changing for me, Jack, is very much peanuts for a salary cap in a team like the 49ers in the grander scheme of things.
Yeah, and it's going to be, I think they have a salary cap, dead cap number for next year of like 8.3 million, which is good. They're going to have to deal with, but after that, it's only going to be like a million and 1.3 million or something like that the year after, the 2 years after that. So I think it's a smart move for the 49ers. You make this, again, this all goes back to Jimmy Garoppolo, right? We keep seeing the 49ers make these moves, and you keep seeing people getting angry about Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm just going to say, hold on a little bit. Hold on and if you want to get angry with Jimmy Garoppolo, let's see what happens tomorrow. Because all the stuff that we've heard about so far doesn't matter until tomorrow at 1:00. If Jimmy Garoppolo's dealt and he's off the team, or they release him, whatever they do, either Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be done with the 49ers by 1:00 tomorrow, or we're going to see a rash of restructures from the 49ers to get themselves under the salary cap by that point. So the people being up in arms about it and saying the 49ers can't do anything because Garoppolo is still on contract, I got to say, like I said on my Twitter last night, that's not the way it works. The 49ers, went out and they got a deal done. I tweeted out before then because look at Kansas City. Kansas City's in a worse shape than the 49ers when it comes to salary cap, or right around that same number. And they're out there making deals left and right as well. So again, it doesn't matter until tomorrow at 1:00. You can sign these guys. So the 49ers' lack of moves in free agency, I don't believe is in because of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and there's not any player that's off the board right now that the 49ers are like, dang, or even the fans, like, who is it that's off the board that we were really eyeing to get? I don't think, if anything, it seems like some of these moves that have already been made are making it eat better actually for the 49ers. Maybe now a Jacoski Tart comes back because he's starting to see, those teams that maybe would have paid him a little bit more already went out and solved some problems. A guy like Raheem Mostert, who, maybe had some suitors out there, especially Miami. They go out and they sign a running back already. So maybe that makes it easier for the 49ers to bring him back. So I think being patient for the 49ers is actually playing in their favor more than, what people might be thinking the opposite way.
Yeah. And so I don't know. We'll see how it works out. I've been purposely trying to be quiet on the Jimmy Garoppolo thing because I just have a feeling that something's going to get done. And I'm not, I don't, the 49ers are going to be under the salary cap tomorrow at 1:00, one way or another. and there are a number of restructures that I think everybody that's looked at their salary structure knew was going to happen or felt pretty strong going to happen. That's Eric Armstead, Jimmy Ward, and then you're looking Kittle maybe. I mean, there's some money that you can save there. Maybe Kittle, but those first two I think were the ones that I think pretty much everybody felt were going to be restructured because you want to keep those guys around long term anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have
Ebicom,
Emmanuel Mosley, and Samson Ebicom, both those players. You know, I think Emmanuel Mosley, if the 49ers really believe in him, we're going to see him get a new deal here soon. And the same thing with Samson Ebicom is a guy who I think is a little underrated by 49ers fans, who played pretty well last year when he was finally moved into the starting lineup. And you can move some money around on his deal, give him a little bit of salary, signing bonus to do it and keep his cap number, in like $4 million next year or somewhere around that range. So
all those four guys you mentioned with Ward, Armstead, Ebicom, and Mosley, I would love to see them long-term with the 49ers. They're all, other than, obviously Ebicom and Mosley are still extremely young guys that, you want to keep that talent. And if you could keep them on team-friendly deals, absolutely. And, Jimmy Ward deserves every penny that the 49ers give him. And I think Armstead has earned us to give him, some money as well, even more than what he's already gotten.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So there's a lot to be played out. I know I understand fans, and I understand wanting to see things done. And believe me, I want to see the 49ers do things too, because that gives me something to write about. So, I understand where you're coming from. Just relax. Just like I said yesterday, just flip on some Guns N' Roses and just listen to Axl Rose bust out. All we need is just a little patience.
I love it. Last time you weren't actually singing it. Now you're actually singing. I love it.
Yeah. See, you got me on a good day. I just got off a show with Grant, and here's Grant, who is a very musically inclined, right, with his Twitter followers.
Uh-huh.
And he decided to get into a discussion about the 49ers Nickelback situation. And so I gave him, a few Nickelback hits.
Let's go.
because there was a time at training camp, I'll throw this out to you. You tell me if it's bad or not. Because there was a time at training camp when he walked over to him and he shows me his phone and he says, "Hey, Jack, look at this photograph." And then I looked at it and all I could do was laugh, because he was showing me that he's a superstar. If you get the reference, maybe you need to, if you don't get it, maybe you just need to
I'm not a big Nickelback fan. So
Nickelback greatest hits, and those three are like three of the top four. So if not, that's okay. That's okay. I think I just lost 15 viewers with with that. But talking about Nickelback, who fills in the slot for the 49ers?
Yeah, I think that player is not on the roster yet. I think that obviously right now who's on the roster, you would think maybe they're grooming Lenore to be that way. But I think that they're going to go somewhere in free agent, whether that means bringing K1 back or somebody else through the draft or in free agency to come play that role. So to be determined, I would say. I don't think that player's on the roster yet.
Yeah, this is a tough one, because you've got a couple of ways that you can go about this. You've got Emmanuel Mosley, who has shown the ability to play in the slot. You've got Charvarius Ward, who's going to be an outside guy. You have Ambry Thomas, who's outside. So maybe that's what you do. Maybe you turn back the clock to 2012 and 2011 when the 49ers did this with Carlos Rogers, where he played in the slot and in the nickel stuff, and they brought in Chris Culliver to play on the outside. Maybe that's the direction that the 49ers go here. You're right on Diamador Lenore. That's another one. I think the other name too that we have to pay attention to that or isn't getting much attention right now is Tarvarius Moore. So imagine being an announcer next year and having Charvarius Ward and Tarvarius Moore on the field at the same time, because I can already foresee Greg Papa saying Charvarius Moore or Charvarius Ward at some point in the season. But imagine, what you might see is a situation where they go back to what they did in 2019, where they use Tarvarius Moore. It's kind of your deep safety, and you're using Jimmy Ward in the slot with with your two safeties being, at that time it was Jaquowski Tart along with Moore. So it'd be maybe if the Friars don't bring in a safety, it would be Talanoa
Honey Badger.
They're not going to get him. But yes. I mean, I understand what you're saying there. I don't think they're going to spend the money that it takes to get a safety of that caliber.
Yeah, no, but I think if it's Ward or if it's Mosley, that would be cool. But I do think that they're still not done bringing in corners. They have 4 right now on the roster, so I think they'll probably bring in another 2. One of those 2 guys or both of those 2 guys are going to be geared more towards that slot or that nickelback position, like you said, versus since they already got 3 guys that could play outside that are all young and capable.
Okay. Yeah. And then real quick, I agree with you there. I think there's going to be some more moves. I think there might be one that they pick up and another one in the draft. And I think we're going to see them. They have 9 picks. I don't know if you saw that where their comp picks came out today. They have 10. They have 10 right now. I think there is. And one of them is going to go to Miami, one of those thirds because of the trade last year for the quarterback. And I know, so I'm just going to throw this out there real quick though, because it's important. We were talking about the offensive line earlier, but Matt Barrows just reported that per his agent, the 49ers tendered restricted free agent offensive lineman Daniel Brunskill at the right of first refusal level, which is $2.43 million. That's some news for the 49er fans right there.
When they tender him, what does that mean? A team has to give up what trade what draft pick do they have to give up to be able to get him?
The right of first refusal is just that. They don't give up anything.
Okay.
Team would have to offer Brunskill something more than $2.43 million, and he didn't want to have to take it. It's that's when you're looking at the tenders. You have the first, I think it's a first and a second round tender. Those are both over $4 million. 49ers weren't going to go that high with Brunskill. So the fact that they tendered him at 2.43, I think that's a pretty good number, really, for Daniel Brunskill, to be honest with you. So we'll see how that all works out and if that's how that plays out. But I just thought we would throw that in here real quick as we start to wrap up the show. Right on. I didn't see any. I didn't miss any messages over on the side. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody that tuned in. I want to say thank you to So Real Sunil. What do you got going on? You're going on Jesse's show tonight, but what's going on with your
going on Jesse's show tonight? Right after this, I am doing a stream with Rohan Chakravarti tomorrow at 6:30 on my channel. I do want to say I had a stream last night with Daniel Kelly, who is a former NFL scout with the Jets. He's the author of the book, Whatever It Takes. I know a lot of people saw I put out a video of him because he's very critical of Trey Lance, believes he's going to be a bust, and has some strong opinions about him. So we talked about that on the show yesterday. So a lot of people have gone at him about that. But his overall story, Jack, I don't know if you know, just an amazing story of a guy who's just a fan of football and just did whatever it took to become, an NFL scout and be able to play out his dream of working on an NFL team. And he actually knows he's actually very, very close to the 49ers as well, because some of the personnel he worked with at the Jets was very close to the same people that worked in the 49ers. So he's working with guys like he was with the Jets when Parcells was the coach. Belichick was there. Pioli was there, and just on and on. So many future head coaches in the NFL were on that staff. Mangini, Romeo Cromell, all those guys. So I got to pick his brain a lot about just the process. And then, we did talk about, Trey Lance as well. So definitely, if you guys haven't seen that, go over to my channel, watch it. I thought it was a good listen. And, he's a good guy. And even though, you might not agree with him, he's definitely firm on what he stands for. And I like it. I think we're going to see more of him in the 49er circle now. So stay tuned.
All right. Well, we'll take a look at that. And really quick for everybody that's there, get over to Sunil's channel, So Real Sports. Make sure you're checked in over there and subscribing. While you're here, please hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to my channel. hit that little bell notification so that you don't miss it. And then that 49ers.press Democrat that's right there below Sunil. Make sure you get over there. Make that a favorite on your taskbar so that you can get over there and check that out on a daily basis. We've got a lot of information about what's going on with the 49ers right now that I'm updating on a regular basis. So check it out. Thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. I will be back tomorrow night with a call-in show starting around 5:15. Matthew, I am going to get some Claritin. I'm actually going right now. I have a sinus infection I found out right before I went on. Yikes. So I will be going to to get some stuff to clear it up right after I get done trying to get everybody to subscribe to my channel because I want to grow the site. So have a great night, everybody. Enjoy it. Thank you again, Sunil, for coming on. Take care, everybody.